Hey, what's up? It's your boy Rawk. Look over there. And now back to me. Hopefully now you'll understand what I mean when I say I'm a bitch. I'm a pretty big pushover when it comes to the whole concept of consumerism, but weirdly enough, it wasn't the fact that I bought the Lego Movie video game for the Wii U that made me realize this. It was these fuckers. So, let me explain myself. The other day I was bored and hadn't spent money in a while. I also hadn't eaten in 3 weeks, so I went to buy food. I went to the shop and they had this big ass sign outside advertising their newest range of cups. I walked past the sign and said, you'd have to be a fucking idiot to be tricked into buying those. I got my 4 slices of apple and a chocolate bar and was living quite contently knowing I wasn't a bitch. Until the cashier told me the cups were only available until September 12th. And man oh man, I just couldn't help myself. You have a video game releasing soon. You spent a whole lot of no effort on it, so you don't want it to fail. But how do you make sure that the most people possible buy it? Make it only available for a week. Oh, thank God. This is a video game, and this is a video game that was only available for a limited time. Can you see why companies like to do this? Printing a physical video game isn't easy. It takes a lot of time, effort, money, and coordination to pull off, but it's an incredibly beneficial thing to do for both the companies manufacturing the game and the retail chains selling them. Sometimes video game publishers want to do this, but also not care. So whip out the limited release strategy. My kids need food on the table tonight. Now I'm not talking limited editions here, stuff like the Metroid Dread Special Edition in this fucking 3DS. No, I'm talking about games that Sony wants you to buy until they don't. I mean, technically speaking, every physical game ever released is a limited release. Only so many copies are printed, and when demand dies down, games aren't typically sold in a retail environment anymore, even if they're released on the consoles that are still active. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 released on the Switch in 2017, but good luck finding that on store shelves. Many companies specialize in the limited release, and this is mainly a thing with indie games from what I can tell. The biggest company of this nature is probably Limited Run Games, but there's also Super Rare Games, First Press Games, Forever Limited. These guys take a lot of indie games from the Nintendo Switch eShop and make physical releases out of them. These are limited releases in the sense that there are only a certain number of copies produced. It's usually around 1,000 to 5,000 copies per game, and once they've sold out, these fuckers skyrocket in price. Like, think about that. Some of the most expensive physical Switch games can be bought for the price of Integrity on the eShop. That's fucking stupid. A lot of times these releases include some special goodies. The best example is the Bug Fables physical edition. It comes with a papercraft diorama, spy cards, a soundtrack CD, a pin set, and an entire bee. Now this might just sound like a limited edition, but the standard edition is also a limited edition. What a world we live in. In some cases, an edition that comes with all these little knickknacks is the only physical edition released, and they are always made in extremely limited quantities, which sounds quite lame, but what I think makes this more okay is the fact that the companies who specialize in these releases couldn't make it more obvious how many copies were produced. So it's not like consumers were left scratching their heads when these games were no longer available. In a lot of other cases, however, a physical release of this nature is typically just a standard edition. It comes with the game, the case, and Integrity. Now that's all well and good. I love buying indie games for 5 times the price I'd usually buy them for, but is the limited release industry populated by any of the main video game manufacturers? Well, I'm glad I asked, because welcome to sadness. Nintendo seems to absolutely effing adore limited releases, and the first notable instance of this is Super Mario All-Stars for the SNES. This was a compilation containing Super Mario Bros., Mario 2, Mario The Lost Levels, and Mario 3. Now I believe the original release wasn't limited, but the re-release, Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World, was a limited release. This version shipped exclusively in SNES console bundles, and was the same game, but with the addition of an updated Super Mario World. The only real update in this version is that Luigi actually looks like Luigi, and that's the only reason I want this version. This game was never released separately from the console bundle it was found in, and that console bundle was a limited edition. So while yes, technically it could be considered a limited edition, it is a separate game to the original version of All-Stars, meaning that in my eyes, it's a limited release. Now, if you want a limited release of the original version of Mario All-Stars, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? And secondly, you happy? Super Mario All-Stars on Wii. You ever celebrate your birthday with an SNES ROM dump? This released in 2010 for the 25th anniversary of Red Luigi. It was a limited release, it wasn't the version that included Mario World, they didn't even change the SNES controller to be a Wii remote. Why did people give a shit? This was such a nothing release, and the worst part is Nintendo said, we can piss in your mouth, but if you don't open wide within 3 months, then it ain't happening, bitch. Now, to be fair, this version did come with some bonus doodads in this big cardboard box. I bought this game used and it only came with the game. I didn't get any of these extras, I'll invite myself to the corner. It came with a history booklet and a sound selection CD, and this was a pretty highly desired item after its retail run came to an end. Until the Rapture. Nintendo selects. F*** off. Super Mario All-Stars was released at a budget price through the Nintendo Selects line in 2016. It was exclusive to the States and came out less than a year before the Switch, and I think that's more than enough reason for me to never talk about it again. Nintendo only ever does limited releases with collections and compilations, and for quite a while there, this only really happened on the Wii. And if you want proof, might I offer you Metroid Prime Trilogy.
Come on, it's yours. Take it. F*** it, I don't care.
Give that back! In Japan around 2009, Nintendo decided to release Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes under the new Play Control line. The Wii had all sorts of fun bullshit, didn't it? Overseas, Nintendo decided, man, we just don't care enough to release 3 whole things. And they gave us the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Until they didn't. This thing was available for about a year, and much like with Mario All-Stars, this came with some fun extras. But unlike with Mario All-Stars, I'm good enough to have these extras.
I'm not nearly as happy as I thought I would have been at this point in my life.
A cardboard sleeve and a booklet. The booklet contains artwork and a summary of the story in the Prime games. I'm thrilled. The cardboard sleeve loves to boast that this is the collector's edition. This was the only edition ever released. I've never liked this packaging. The cardboard sleeve follows the standard Nintendo Wii box art layout, but it has 2 spines because I'm not allowed to not be pissed. And then the actual case doesn't use the standard box art template. My god! There's no ridge, there's no spine, there isn't a Wii logo in sight.
I'd talk about the actual game, but I'm just too busy hating the back of the box. It's just Samus!
But if you love everything about Metroid Prime Trilogy but just refuse to own it, might I suggest the Wii U Virtual Console release?
Oh, thank God. I despise concrete matter.
The final example on the Wii is Kirby's Dream Collection. It was such a limited release that us Brits aren't allowed to have it. This is another Mario All-Stars Metroid Prime Trilogy shtick. It was a combination of Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby Dream Land 2, Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Dream Land 3, and Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. This was a super good collection, not just because it included a good chunk of Kirby's history, but also because it contained a whole bunch of extra features, including challenge stages seen in Kirby's Adventure Wii. It released in July and September of 2012 in Japan and the States respectively, and as is tradition by this point, it was available for about a year before it was discontinued. This one is the most disappointing of the bunch. Metroid Prime Trilogy simply collected 3 games that were already on Wii. Super Mario All-Stars was an SNES ROM dump, but Kirby Dream Collection was legitimately an amazing way to experience a massive amount of Kirby's legacy, and to see it be discontinued was really disheartening. Even if it never came to the UK, Nintendo, you better make your way to the timeout step. Now, I don't know if this necessarily counts, but during the Wii U era, Nintendo did a fair few releases that would come with the game and an extra something, usually an amiibo. Stores would get their initial stock in, and then once they were sold out, the standard release would be the only one available. Now, of course, this may sound like a special edition, but it was never advertised that way. It was more just that the first batch a store received would include more than just the game. And if you missed out on that, well then you had to settle. Now, the only examples of this I can remember experiencing myself are repulsive. Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival came with some amiibo cards and 2 amiibo figures being Isabelle and Digby. However, after that initial batch of the game was sold out, Nintendo intended on phasing Digby out of the set. They'd need to keep Isabelle and the amiibo cards in because players needed them to actually, play the game. But Nintendo wanted Digby to be exclusive to the first wave of the game. The problem is Amiibo Festival didn't even come close to not selling too abysmally to do this. Stores are still putting their initial stock of the game on clearance to this very day. Want proof? Well, allow me to show you exactly how much I paid for the bundle that included Digby. That's it. I paid £1 single for all of this. Now, I don't have the outer packaging anymore because I'm worthless, but considering I bought it for that price on March 1st, 2020... yeah, they were never able to phase Digby out. And then Mario Party 10. When this game launched here in the UK, it came with an amiibo for the Mario series for quite a while / eternity, considering the Mario Party 10 also suffered from too shit to sell wellitis. Looking online, I can only find ones that came with a Mario amiibo. Looking at North American listings, I can find ones that came with Peach and Bowser. But I swear to Christ, I got this game with a Toad amiibo. How can you trust that I'm telling the truth? Do I look like someone who stoops low enough to buy a fucking Toad amiibo? No! I'd only get that stupid thing if I were buying Mario Party 10 like any sane person. Now, of course, it would probably make more sense for this amiibo to have came with Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for Wii U, and you're right, and the UK did get bundles of Captain Toad which came with this amiibo. But I swear to Christ, it came with Mario Party 10. Please believe me, Jesus fuck! Heading into the Nintendo Switch era, limited releases of all kinds seem to be completely extinct. Sure, I can't go into a shop and buy Xenoblade Chronicles 2 anymore, but it's okay. I'm a bitch anyway. My kind don't want to go into a shop and buy Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Everything was going great. Until Nintendo remembered what lust felt like. In celebration of its 30th anniversary, Nintendo finally localized Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, the first Fire Emblem game that never left Japan. They announced this on October 22nd, 2020, and this was a pretty huge deal for Fire Emblem fans. Now, as someone who identifies as none of the above, surely you can stomach my opinion on this. Nintendo went all out for this release. Sure, you could just download it on the eShop for like way past not too much money, but you could also buy this meaty collector's edition that came with all kinds of fun garbage. This edition came with some nice-ass packaging, a mini Nintendo Power collectible, a deluxe art book, a replica game box, instruction manual and map, and a replica NES cartridge with a dust cover. This was all fantastic, but stay with me now. Where was the game?
Why?
I'll tell you why! Because if they were to release this game on a cartridge, it would have been a lot more difficult for them to ensure that nobody had this game after March 31st, 2021. And with that in mind, it's time for my opinion! So you better open wide because it's feeding time. This was the first time you made this game available outside of Japan. No matter what the game in question is, finally bringing a Japan-exclusive game to the rest of the world is a huge deal. And the mere idea of having it ripped away after only 3 months is a huge fan of the phrase "go f*** yourself." At the end of the day, Fire Emblem is Fire Emblem. I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, I don't like this series, so that means Nintendo should stop caring about it. God, no. I'm also just trying to say that it's a pretty niche series, and this product is only going to appeal to hardcore fans, which makes it feel like even more of a kick in the teeth. The Switch does not live or die based on the success of this release. So what the fuck was the point in this then? Why go out of your way to ensure that fans of your series don't get to know what happiness tastes like when compared to previous examples? This was such a small release. Hell, if they just got rid of the physical release with all of its extra goodies, I'd understand it. But no! They ripped this thing off the eShop faster than a wax strip, and it stung just as much as one. But I get it. I, along with most of the population, am not a Fire Emblem fan. I can live peacefully knowing that I don't know what investment is. That doesn't make this okay! I'm sure you know what's coming next. We've talked about all of the major examples of Nintendo's limited releases. Unless, of course, you want to talk about Chibi Robo Ziplash and its Amiibo release, which was limited in a similar way to the previous two. But you could order the standard release on Amazon. And also, no being alive has ever said, I want to talk about Chibi Robo Ziplash. No. Next, we're talking about the big one. You know what it is. I don't even have to say it. I'm, of course, talking about Jump Rope Challenge. It was released in June 2020, and it was meant to be removed after 3 months. They changed their mind, but still.
The latest and most controversial instance of Nintendo's limited release strategy was something so disgusting, so riot-inducing, that it broke the fabric of the universe as we know it. The Mario Game & Watch.
Mario's 35th anniversary. You ever celebrate your birthday only to get publicly executed a few hours later? Mario has no luck with this stuff. Nintendo released 3 major products in tandem with this celebration. The aforementioned Game & Watch, also known as The Only One That Matters, Super Mario Bros. 35, and of course, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. These guys were announced in a big Mario 35th Anniversary Direct on September 3rd, 2020, and they all came with the caveat that they would be discontinued on March 31st, 2021. Let's discuss. The Mario Game & Watch, I can somewhat understand that one. It's a very niche item that would only really appeal to hardcore Mario fans and bitches, so having it there exclusively for the anniversary period made sense. I don't like that they did it, but it's at least excusable. The other two, however, yeah, no. Super Mario 3D All-Stars combined Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy into one nifty package. Now, at the time of this game's reveal and release, there wasn't the best offering of older games on the Switch. Quite frankly, there still isn't. We have some Wii U ports and the NES and SNES online apps, but nothing major. We wanted to see N64 games, GameCube games, hell, maybe even Wii games, all playable on the Switch. And instead of satisfying the lust, Nintendo did this. One N64 game, one GameCube game, and one Wii game. But no more than that, don't be greedy. The one time we finally see them bring games from these consoles to the Switch, and in a collection, might I add, they rip it away from us. That almost makes it feel like Nintendo will never give us substantial legacy content from these consoles because, again, the one time they actually give us what we want, they broke into our homes and took it back only a few months later. But at the very least, physical copies of this game still exist, and it seems to be selling for less than what it originally went for. You know Nintendo f***ed it when eBay sellers come out of a situation on the moral high ground. But if you own this game, you can still play it. Now on a completely unrelated note, Super Mario Bros. 35 everybody! An interesting concept, a battle royale. Seeing 35 players battling it out in the original Super Mario Bros. Enemies you defeat are sent over to your opponents and increase your time. Be the last man standing. This game was boatloads of fun. Boatloads of fun. Super Mario Bros. 35 was a digital download, meaning when March 31st passed, you couldn't get your hands on it. But that's fine, because if you still had it downloaded, you'd still be able to play it, right? Well, to answer this question, here's our nearest local Super Mario 35 player. After March 31st, you weren't able to play Mario 35. At all. This is absolutely one of the most baffling things Nintendo has ever done, not only because millions and millions were playing that game religiously from the minute it released, but also because there was so much potential to expand it beyond just Super Mario Bros. 1. They could have charged £5 to £10 on the eShop for theme packs, which could vastly change the game. We could have had Mario 2 35, Mario 3 35, Mario World 35, New Soup 35, but no! They decided to throw that opportunity down the toilet, all because they had set an arbitrary date for this thing to go kaput. And we all know there's absolutely no way they could have gone back on that, or, God forbid, still allow people to play the goddamn motherfucking game. What is wrong with you? At the end of the day, limited releases exist to capitalize on FOMO, the fear of missing out. Companies know that if you see a product that's only around for a limited period of time, you're so much more likely to purchase it. And if you ask me, the whole concept of limited releases is quite malicious, utilizing a psychological phenomenon intended to scare people into purchases to manipulate your audience into buying a product that they may not even want to buy, all for the sake of the bottom line. It's a pretty scummy thing to do. Now, of course, you can make the argument that, oh, Rawk, we don't know for certain that's why companies make these releases limited. But with that last example, the products were discontinued on the final day of Nintendo's fiscal year. It's pretty obvious why that was. And that right there is the core of this issue. That's what it all comes down to. When it's so blindingly obvious that a company is doing borderline scummy things all for the sake of the bottom line, it hurts customer trust. And I feel that that loss is far greater than the few extra sales gained from doing something like this. Shoot at the people who follow this stuff religiously and shower once every 3 weeks and have no friends because they smell. This kind of stuff isn't a massive deal because we're the type to buy games at launch regardless of any sort of artificial scarcity. I think this only starts to seem like a big deal when you consider people out of the know. So let's imagine a very realistic scenario for a quick sec here. There's a kid out there who loves Nintendo, and for their birthday in May 2021, their parents finally had enough saved to buy them a Switch. After seeing all the hubbub about 3D All-Stars through its extensive ad campaign, they want nothing more than to play 3 of the best games in their favorite series on their brand new console. But if mom and dad don't want to pay eBay scalpers through the nose for a copy, then they're straight out of luck. How do you explain to that kid that because their parents couldn't afford to buy them a Switch before Nintendo artificially declared that they weren't going to sell this game anymore, they simply cannot play it? And just like that, their trust in Nintendo is gone, and a child's birthday is ruined. That's fucked up! What I'm talking about here applies to any and all limited releases. I know I've been mainly focusing on Mario's 35th, but really, Metroid Prime Trilogy, Mario All-Stars on Wii, Kirby Dream Collection, the Chibi Robo Ziplash Amiibo bundle, because fuck it, we don't think the kids are intelligent enough to comprehend what horse shit is. It all applies here. And the scary thing is, people keep coming up with defenses for this. Oh, it only happens with anniversary events that happen around the beginning of the decades. It's not that big a deal. But what happens when Ubisoft wants to try this out? What happens when EA decides that microtransactions aren't enough? What happens when Activision decide that they haven't manipulated enough people this month? Because as soon as the ice is broken, as soon as the precedent is set, it begins to feel more and more normal with every single new instance of it happening. And eventually we'll live in a time when we can only buy Just Dance 2042 for 1 week in April 2036, and that is a reality that we are just not ready for.
Limited releases can sometimes be a fun way to incentivize fans to buy a product, but in most cases, I'd argue that they're bad for the industry. And after this whole cup fiasco, I think I'm finally over falling for the tactic. I'm gonna head back to the shop and hopefully I'll be able to get a refund for these bad boys. And I absolutely will not be buying any Joy-Cons. I mean, they're way too small, they always drift, they're on sale, the sale only has 3 days left, and you know what? I needed more colour in my life anyway, how could I not buy these?